I see a comment that's quite interesting. I'm going to show it on here, another long one. Because of how it feels stepping out of an expensive looking car, the attention and opinions of others. After all, not everyone understands or wants to play the long game when one can portray success now. Even if every logical path to success says the complete opposite. We buy because of emotion, not logic, unfortunately. But same thing with houses too. People buy with emotion too, right? I'm sure,
Yes.
Sean, you have seen that or experienced that, right?
Yep. So even when people on this topic, right, car or house, sometimes when you think that the house is not an investment, also there are a lot of cases where people buy into their dream, hope they lose money.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So we are very familiar with that part of the story. Is it's almost to the rate of a car actually, and as a car you can exit quick. That's the good thing. Like, but the house it's nah, you're going to be stuck there for at least 10, 15, 20 years easily. And
Right.
you'll be very, it's a very dreadful experience when you are paying for a loan. Let's say you're buying a house at 1.2 million, but the value is going to be 800,000, right? But you took a loan of 1.2 million and you're old, you keep paying for 1.2, but you know the value is only 800.
Mm.
Does it make sense to sell and buy again?
I think as a conclusion, right, the thing that we need to aim for is you buy a car to get yourself in a position where you have holding power, where you have disposable income, so that even if let's say you cannot rent out for 3, 4, 5 months, you can still sustain that mortgage, right? And then once you're at a position where okay, you bought a car and you're at a position where you have disposable income, now you can go and look into investing in your first house. But I don't know about you, Sean, but I'm a big believer where you should not, because I saw your post on Instagram, right? I just want to refer back to that. I think you posted today or yesterday, I can't remember. But I'm a big believer of you renting where you live and then you buy real estate as an investment and then you rent out to tenants.
Yep.
I'm a big believer in that. I just want to ask your opinion on that, and then also John. And before I pass the stage to you guys, just want to let you guys know my opinion. Why is that as well? I think what you say on your Instagram post resonates with me. At different part of your life, different times of your life, you need different types of housing. You need maybe better location. Maybe not after you work at you start a business and you're very successful, you don't need as good of a position anymore. You can go and live a little bit further away in the countryside where you can be less stressed, right?
Yep.
Because you have your team working in the city for you, so on and so forth, right? So let's start with John, right? John, what's your opinion on that? Rent where you live and then buy for investment.
I think that is especially important when you're young, because when you're young, you have different opportunities. You are constantly on the move. So when I first bought my first investment property, at the point of time, I was still renting. And I was renting. Another reason why I was still renting is because I feel that this is like a dream house, but I'm not sure if it is suitable for me because it was a studio unit. Yeah, so I said, why not just rent first and then stay there for a year first, and then if it suits me, then after that I buy. But in the end, I still didn't buy that unit, like that studio unit, because after a year of staying there, I realized when you go and stay at the beginning, wow, very cool, but then you see every day also, you kind of bored, you get bored with it. Yeah, and then I start to realize, okay, now I need something bigger. Yeah, so then I started to get something bigger until I realized, okay, yeah, if I want a home, right, I need a house of this size. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I believe, especially when you're young, before you have a family, before you actually settle down, it makes more sense to rent first rather than to buy first. And if you were to buy, it should be an investment. It shouldn't be a property that you call your home.
Right. Sean?
Like even if you want to buy a property as a home, there's nothing wrong with that actually. But so I've met a lot of there was one friend I was going to introduce to Desmond also. So he's in his 60s, ran a super successful marketing agency, and sold the business, right? So he has money in abundance. So he was just telling me he just got a condo that is 2,000 over square feet, 5 million for it, right? So he bought 5 million for a condo, but his landed house in Damansara Heights, right? He got in an architect to build it, everything. So it's like 7 to 8 million. So now when his kids are going overseas, then suddenly, Sean, but what do you think of the apartment? I'm like, okay lah, it's 5 million. Whatever I say is not really relevant at that time. But I say like, oh, it's just a place for me to settle down because I cannot maintain the house anymore. It's just too big from front to end, right? I just water the plant also, I tired already. So with that in mind, and suddenly that need, that temporary need, right, of the conclusion that I wrote in the post suddenly makes a lot of sense. So if you were to buy something as a home, also always do think about this is only temporary. So if the rental rates of the current moment you want to buy can cover 70% of your installment, right, it's a pretty much safe bet. It's always the danger when people want to buy a home where it's far away just because it's a landed. We are all brought up with this expectation of we must stay in a terrace house. That's our dream home. So they buy in locations that are super far away, like Rawang or new locations, right, with master plan. But those locations, 7-Eleven consider luxury. Hey, 7-Eleven come in already, we are going to see a height. My God, right? So with that expectation, 5 years later, you're going to move. Like whatever Jonathan said, right? You stay 1-2 years already, you also feel you feel less connected to the house. What makes you think after you buy the house 5 years later you don't want to move out, right?
Yes.
So if you buy a particular location where it can somewhat cover 80% of your installment, it means demand for your space. Even if you move out, right, it can be converted into something that you can rent out immediately.
Right.
If you buy a very unique piece, you make it only to your liking, nobody want to buy it, also want to exit, also susah.
Right.
It's as if you're buying that coin and then you add 2 strokes of carving for yourself.
Right.
So so for those who want to buy a home, right, it's also be mindful on 5, 8, 10 years later. It's not a dream home that lasts you forever. And yeah.
Have you guys ever had thoughts like this? Every time I rent a place and then I moved in, before that you'll be like, oh, this is so wonderful, everything is fantastic. Then 1 month later you'll be like, oh damn, I didn't see this when before I move in. Oh man, I didn't see this problem when I was making that decision. Any one of you guys experience that?
John, go first. No, John, go.
I think during the early years when I was in Malaysia, for the first 5 years, I was shifting houses 4 times. Yeah. So everywhere I went, I always had this very fresh feeling. Yeah. It was until this past 5 years, as after 30, I don't shift that much really. Yeah. But to me, I don't really have that kind of problem because I'm very easily comfortable at home. I just want to make sure everything cozy, that I'm comfortable at home. And most of the time I'm outside. It's until this MCO that taught me that I need to have a home where I can work. Yeah. Yeah. And now that I have this room, most of the time when I'm home, I'm in this room, except for Saturday, Sunday. And also at night. Yeah. So I'm one of those guys who I'm always in my man cave. Yeah. So to me, I don't really have that problem. Yeah.
In my opinion, that is my entire methodology of doing the YouTube channel, right? So it's to let people know, hey, in this area there will be such problems. So if you're only if you're okay with that, go ahead with the deal, right? If you, it's best you go into the deal with your eyes wide open instead of there's a lot of tricks that agents also pull where they make appointments on early evenings, right before the jam. Then when it's quiet, no one in the roads, right? Then the sunset really just, that orange light just lightens up that space. It makes everything looks good. But when you wake up on a Monday morning, what the hell is going on, right? Why this space like that? Then workmanships as well. So there's just way more consideration if you're buying a house versus a car lah. But ultimately, it's rare you see houses in 20-30 years time lose a lot of money. It's very rare, but they do have such cases, especially for developments that is within this 4 or 5 years time, because everyone is also building master plans in outskirt areas, right? But they are selling at the price of city price. So that's the trick. So yeah, so I think that's the place where a lot of people need to really be mindful, not to be too emotional attached to buying that home when you are buying. So if you are I think if like the two gentlemen here, you calculate almost everything one, then the house would most likely be better than a car.
Right.
But I have this senior that's very cool. Then he was looking at me, because I was buying like 23, 24, 25, 26. I keep buying properties, but I was starving myself to death in terms of my lifestyle. No life, zero lifestyle. The same shoe I wore for 7 years, right? Until this year only I changed. Then he said, why? You should enjoy. And in terms of enjoy, suddenly cars pop to mind first. So that's again, you get to enjoy your cars, but you cannot enjoy your houses. Right? And so even if you rent, you want to make it into your own, there's this reluctant. You want to spend 200,000-300,000 on ID on a person's property. It doesn't make sense also. Right. So and plus it's very difficult to look for a place that is the ID really suits your taste. That's even worse, right, to find. So again, there's this debate when I learned and I concluded that when to work until when I'm like 38, I will spend like 200,000-300,000 just on ID on my own home. So most likely I will regret it. So because the next buyer is not going to pay the same amount for whatever ID that you pour into the house, because it doesn't increase the value of the property also. So there's this debate right now that I'm trying to understand enjoyment versus hustle all the time. Right? We hustle so long already. I think all of us did hustle for the past 10 years easily, working so hard. But what do you enjoy? That's like Desmond. I enjoy timepieces when I'm stressed, when I'm in the flight, right? That 1 hour, just me and my watch, were amazing.
Which one were you looking at?
I was looking at my Coke.
For those of you who don't know, Coke is not the actual Coca-Cola drink.
yeah. So that is this vintage piece that I just acquired this year, and the patina of the light from the stratosphere, it's crazy. But then, so you enjoy these little moments, but without that watch, right? Then suddenly you like tired as hell. Then all the properties, at one moment of time, again, all my properties were insured. I didn't have insurance.
Wow.
Because I was worried that if anything happened to me, right, the loan of the properties are just too overwhelming to the family. Therefore, I insure them first. Also, there's this tipping point where now, if you are 50, would you want to get a car or a house again? When would you want to stop investing? That's another discussion that will be, I think, for the next topic.